This is part B of the Baby Angel Geronimo editions, Khoodeelaar television channel, being broadcast as part B at 21:40 GMT. Today, Monday, the 16th of October 2023. One of the things that I do, and I do it, and I've been doing it much more effectively and competently than Andy Warhol ever would have done, could have done. I will not discuss Andy Warhol at this stage in detail, except to say that Andy Warhol is overrated, and as is Woody Allen. There are racist, clearly racist maneuvers, manipulations of the propaganda, positive propaganda around them. Woody Allen, particularly, is a sick-making, corrupt, absolutely degenerate individual. And yet his profile, propaganda profile, is the opposite. Now, the things that I do, like this one, I don't know whether the camera will catch it or can catch it in the way that I'm sitting. This is the picture. It's a still picture I took on the conventional Pentax. Was it Pentax camera? In that is March 2010, and the venue is the Brady Center in Hanbury Street. And in the picture, on the left at the top is the job, the dirtiest kind of MP for St. Pancras or Holborn, Frank Dobodobson, and seated to his left and to the right of the, and in the right, as the viewer looks at it, are two tokens, Bangladeshi tokens. They were put there by the corruptly behaving, absolutely corruptly behaving, dishonest, self-seeking opportunist, former Tower Hamlets councillor. But at that time he was very much still in the game. Abbas Uddin Halal. Abbas Uddin alias Halal literally put Frank Dobodobson on a pedestal in gratitude. Now, in the poster that is in front of Dobodobson, it's a handwritten poster that cannot be read at this distance with the camera being kind of not very, no, it cannot capture that. It reads, "No to dictatorship in Tower Hamlets." What that no to dictatorship was a reference to the elected mayor. And the main banner behind those seated and behind Dobodobson is "No to directly elected mayor in Tower Hamlets." The same Dobodobson appeared at the same place Only a few months later, at the invitation of the same Abbas Uddin Elias Halal, and he spewed the opposite. He said that Abbasuddin Elias Halal was the best candidate for the Labour Party for the post of elected mayor. Dictatorship has disappeared from the references. And Abbasuddin Elias came across as a liar because from the end of 2009 until the May, 6th of May 2010, when the referendum so called took place on the question of whether Tower Hamlets should have an elected mayor. Abbasuddin Elias Halal pretended that he was against the elected mayor, against the dictatorship in Tower Hamlets. That was his public persona. But privately, at the very same time that he was saying that in public, Abbasuddin Elias Halal operated as a complete utter liar. He visited Labour Party members in Tower Hamlets and canvassed them on his candidacy as the Labour Party's best possible nominee for the post of mayor. So during the daytime, Abbasuddin Elias Halal said no. And during the night time, he said yes. On the 5th of January 2010, there was a kind of meeting held at the Micro Business Center in the Greater Egg Street, allegedly to oppose the referendum campaign as it was afoot at the time. I didn't speak. Why? Because those who control the actual event knew that if I spoke, then their corruption would be exposed. That is the reason. That has always been the reason. So they didn't see me. I was there, right near the table. And one of the speakers, Alauddin, a former councillor, nearly choked, repeatedly choked in desperation because he was very nervous that I stood with the camera very near him. Well, the camera that I carried was the Sony camcorder, bought from a shop near the Bishopsgate, either on the 30th of April or thereabouts, 2010. And because I didn't have a bank account, I have been in the same category in that respect as Nigel Farage for a very long time. The banks would never tell me why they won't let me have a bank account. So from time to time, I have to use other people's bank accounts and pay them the cash, etc., etc. This camcorder, Sony camcorder, was bought with the card carried by K. Jordan. So I carried the camcorder. No, this was the one that I had been using before the K. Jordan card linked one was bought in April, because this was 5th of January 2010. So I had been using another camcorder. That one was bought by me with cash. And that was also a Sony camcorder, but it was the earlier version. So while I was standing very near the so-called dais that Alauddin was speaking at, Alauddin nearly choked several times. Now, it wasn't me who is saying this. I'm only reporting something that was later told to me at great length by more than one person who attended and observed the very nervous state in which Alauddin was when he had to speak. Now, Alauddin and others totally failed to address the main issues as to why having an elected mayor post in Tower Hamlets was the last thing the people of Tower Hamlets needed. But not just on that issue. On almost every other issue that mattered to the collective demography, Alauddin did not come across as the carrier of a breaking news or breaking commentary. But then, nor did the others who spoke. So it was actually a disaster, a big opportunity to demolish the argument for having an elected mayor was lost. And the most important thing why it was lost was because the crooks, self serving criminals, who had been councillors sometimes and had the maximum ambition for their lives to fleece the Tower Hamlets Bangladeshi community as much as they could. They had neither the abilities, nor the capacities, nor the vision to cover the whole community, whole society, etc., etc. And they most certainly didn't have any real understanding about democracy in any respect. So their main concern when I am present at any rally or event where there are supposedly the main spielers is to make sure that they find a way or find more than one way to deny me any platform. That, of course, doesn't stop me having the platform because whatever they organize ends up as a disaster. So I have to organize the real thing, which has happened over the last 52 years since I came to the United Kingdom. Actually, everything that matters to the community has to be raised by me and pursued by me. For example, when the two relatives, Ismat Ali and Watir Ali, in the Flower and Dean Walk, were murdered in the evening of Sunday, the 9th of July, 1989, the following Saturday, 15th of July, 1989, a group of individuals decided to hold a rally at the Altavali Park, including demanding that the murderer or the murderers of these two relatives be caught and punished, etc., etc., etc. I had not been invited by those who organized that. Why? Surprise, surprise. Because they thought correctly that if I arrived and I gave any significant length of a speech. It would be my speech that would pay due attention and provide the main information, thus becoming featuring as the main piece. That's the reason, not because they didn't know me. Indeed, they knew, they did more than know me. They were determined to frustrate and sabotage my appearance on platforms that they thought they would be able to monopolize and exploit for their own petty little careers. I arrived and I was standing there. I never do this thing. I never compete. I never compete for a spot. This is against my ethics, has been for a very long time. Two things underlie the ethics. Firstly, that I don't want to give the lesser ones with lesser abilities, lesser perception, and etc. etc. the feeling of being frustrated by me, defeated by me. So I want them to have the full range of the scope and the opportunities so that they can make their case, whatever it is. And secondly, because of their corruption, personal corruption, absolutely greedy personal corruption, it happens, and on this occasion it did happen as well, spectacularly, they are bound to be exposed and coming apart, unfit for purpose. I stood there listening to whoever was spieling and spewing. At one point, when a man who has just recently passed away, called Kholamia, came to me and said, I asked them to let you speak, but they won't. And I assured Kholamia that he need not have bothered because I was not there to speak as a keynote speaker. My role was already determined by so many factors over the millennia, if you like, in terms of this community. So, as the rally ended and it kind of was converted into a march from the Altapalli Park through Brick Lane into Bethnal Green Road towards the Bethnal Green Underground Station, near which the then Tower Hamlets headquarters of the London Metropolitan Police was based, very near the Wilmot Street and Bethnal Green Road junction. While the march entered Bethnal Green Road, a number of marchers were picked up by the police, arrested, and taken away for no reason at all, because the police wanted to show that they were in control, and also they were kind of partial to the racist murderers and killers of these two relatives, Ismat Ali and Watir Ali, his nephew. They died separately because Ismat Ali died on the day or on the night or on the date when they were attacked, and Watir Ali died a few months later, struggling with death for several months in hospital. But essentially, they were both murdered in the same attack. So the police knew that the march and the rally had been organized to point at the police, Metropolitan Police's racism, racist lethargy, and lack of interest in finding, arresting, and indicting these criminals, who murdered two Bangladeshi men in the Flower and Dean Walk, which runs parallel to Brick Lane, is not any in any way as long as the Brick Lane is, but it runs the length of it that it is runs parallel to Brick Lane. And what happened was the police picked up these number of three or four individuals, and then because of their being arrested, others in the march who saw the arrest and or were informed by others in the march which was progressing demanded that the police let them go. Now there is no way that the police would let them go after they had arrested them, not in the way that the demand was being raised with the police. So this was going on, let's say, from the point where the Valence Road crosses Bethnal Green Road and goes into Squaries or Squeary Street. And the march was coming from the west, from Brick Lane, end of Bethnal Green Road, and was moving towards the Cambridge Heath Road junction with Bethnal Green Road, just past the Wilmot Street junction, or Wilmot Street and Bethnal Green Road connection link. Now, Wilmot Street is almost exactly opposite the spot that used to be prominently displayed as the Sun Public House. Not the Sun to do with the newspaper, just the natural Sun name. And the public house was packed with racists while this protest march was progressing. So, somewhere, a few seconds before the marchers came parallel to the Sun pub, I decided to take the microphone from whoever was using the microphone or loudspeaker, because whatever they were saying was not having any effect. So I instantly decided that we will do something to create an impact that was so far lacking. The march was happening, the rally had happened, but there was no impact functioning. So I said to the people that if they believed in the justness of their cause, that the protest cause for the arrest of the murderers of these Ismat Ali and his relation be arrested and these protesters be allowed to go. If they believe that, then they should sit down. They should sit down right there and block the whole of the Bethnal Green Road. I said that, and they sat down and they blocked the whole of Bethnal Green Road. And the traffic was blocked, and all the impact that I knew would happen began to happen. Within about, let's say, within about 40 minutes, the territorial reserves support the armed wing of the Metropolitan Police arrived and dispersed the whole gathering. But even if it was 40 minutes or 50 minutes, I don't know, but it wasn't very long. Whatever the duration of the sit down had an absolutely dramatic, spectacular effect because I spoke most of the times, and everything I said included certain chants that people responded to. The fact that it was so was recorded by the usually racist East London idiotizer. It's called Eastern Advertiser, but I gave it the name East London idiotizer because the verb transitive is idiotic. Its contents were idiotic, and what it was doing was idiotizing the readers and the viewers, whatever. Because the following edition, the edition of the Eastern idiotizer that appeared, it's a weekly outlet. So the edition of the East London idiotizer that appeared after the 15th of July 1989 had a good spread illustrated with photographs of this demonstration. And the biggest picture was of me holding the loud hailer and addressing the gathering. Now go back to the Kolamia, what he said. He said that he had asked the organizers at the Altawali Park to give me a chance to speak, and they won't let me speak. And I said to Kolamia that not to worry, because that would make no difference. I already had the platform. So that's what I meant. How it would happen, how it would turn out, I never knew. But that is what happens. That is the pattern. A campaign begins, and then the campaigners disappear. And it has to be taken to the conclusion by me. That has been happening in relation to events, activities organized by others. I have organized main events, not others organizing them and me taking them to the logical conclusion, but I initiating the whole thing. For instance, the campaign to stop the Crossrail hole being dug in the middle of Brick Lane, and the campaign to raise awareness. In 1973, after the Sunday Times Color magazine carried an anti-Siloti, racist anti-Siloti, anti-Muslim piece by a racist woman called Leslie Garner. And so on. And contrast this with the murder in 2013 of Ajmal Alam, a bright pupil at the Langdon Park School in Poplar, by a gang of Bangladeshi thugs and criminals. The murder of Ajmal Alam was not carried out by racists like the murder of Altawali or the murder of Ishaq Ali in 1978. This was done by criminal gang of Bangladeshis murdering this boy who was posthumously described in eloquent and very highly positive terms by their school's management. As the head teacher, Chris Dunn, kind of represented the school. So when I went to fact checking, I was I went to ask the Tarham's Council about this, and I have covered this in the last 24 hours about the attitude and the idiocy and the ignorance of Ohid Ahmed. That is what happens. Nobody, not even the so called elected council, was bothered about why a Bangladeshi boy was murdered by 3 or 4 Bangladeshi criminals. And to this day, it's more than 10 years ago now. None of the issues that I raised 10 years ago about Ajmal Alam has been addressed by the local council or by any locally elected councillor or by any of the 2 members of parliament. Members of parliament, both of them women, them are Bangladeshis. And they're only there because of the demographic composition of the constituencies, Poplar and Limehouse, and Bethnal Green and Bow. Poplar and Limehouse or Limehouse, not Poplar and Limehouse, is it Poplar and Limehouse? I think Poplar and Limehouse is the one constituency, and the other one is, of course, Bethnal Green and Bow. Let's check the name Poplar and Limehouse if I've got that correct. It is Poplar and Limehouse. Poplar and Limehouse is a constituency created in 2010 and represented in the House of Commons of the United Kingdom Parliament since 2019 by Afsana Begum of the Labour Party. And the other one, of course, Bethnal Green and Bow, is represented by Roshana Ali. And those 2 MPs, each one is an embarrassment and unfit for purpose. But that goes without saying. They have to be unfit for purpose for them to be in those positions. I shall not repeat any of the factual stuff that I had already said on the record about Roshna Ali or Afsana Begum, except to say that the fact that they are 2 very timid, very ignorant, and very subservient mental slaves serves the likes of Keir Starmer, the political murderer of the Labour Party, very well, and others in the corrupt, racist Labour Party cabal. Compared to my photographs, Andy Warhol's pictures are all fabricated, faked. And my pictures tell the truth, the competent truth about the record. Absolutely impeccably created record or pieces of record evidence. Events recorded in the picture that I showed, and also on the 6th of February 2010, outside the Brady Center, where I also addressed the meeting. the rally. That was a rally organized to oppose the gathering that was taking place inside the Brady Center. At the same time, that one inside the Brady Center by supporters of the executive mayor vote. In terms of the kind of self promotion about that, the most prominent one involved in that was the restaurateur Shiraj. According to reliable information volunteered to me by people who come from the same area as Shiraj does, the name Shiraj was an invention. He didn't have a name, even a one piece name, until a name was needed following his arrival in the United Kingdom as an infant. So if it was one of his family, like his uncles or his father, who was a tailor, that decided to kind of deal with his formalities, then this name Shiraj was invented about that time, and also a surname was kind of inflicted with the wrong spelling. But the wrong spelling stuck until Shiraj realized that there was a genuinely spelled Mr. Hawk who has been active in Tower Hamlets for a very long time, and he could benefit from plagiarizing and stealing my name, which is what he did. But the records of his name being used while it was still being used in the wrong spelling still exist to show that Shiraj has lied. He's stolen not only his name, he did as well with intent to deceive and mislead people about who he was. And the people who colluded, allowed him to do that, knew that he was a liar, but they didn't mind that he was a liar. Exactly as they don't mind, even now, 2023, when Shiraj has disappeared from the scene politically in terms of doing the fixing about Tower Hamlets Council, because he was the main one that made the claim in support of the referendum for an elected mayor post, and after the referendum went their way for the election of Lutfur Rahman to that post. Everyone knows that the records show that Lutfur Rahman was only supported by Shiraz because Shiraz wanted the Boishaki Mela franchise, the Boishaki Mela funding that was provided by the Tower Hamlets Council. So he wanted to profit from that. And in order to guarantee that control over the Boishaki Mela, Shiraz wanted somebody in the council who would be able to make the decision without bothering with democracy and accountability, etc. That's why he dedicated himself to creating the atmosphere for the elected mayor post, and then continuing with the provision of enough support for the candidate that he supported, Luthu Raman, and the money he would guarantee Shiraj from that agreement, lobby, manipulation, etc. Because of that being well known in the community, those people who opposed Shiraj, not opposed to the elected mayor post, because most of the people that are in the Bangladeshi community allegedly able to cast their votes appear not to be concerned about the finer details of the elected mayor post. I shall go back a bit to see what items are being included and excluded. So Shiraj has disappeared from the scene, and this is we're talking in 2023. But on the day of the demonstration in 1989, which is some decades ago, 89, 99, 2009, 2019, several decades ago, on 15th of July, 1989, when I organized or led the sit down on the Bethnal Green Road. In the main picture, where the Eastern Idiotizer runs me as the picture, main speaker, the individual that is most clearly recognizable is Shiraj. He didn't lead the sit down, but he was there standing very near to me and was obviously supportive of what I was kind of leading the campaign event to do. So he was there on the record as being very near me, but he never was near me politically because he never supported anything politically that I have done if that would have entailed him not profiting personally. See the difference. So, for example, one in 2003, I organized with K. Jordan the Khoodeelaar campaign to defend the community against the Crossrail Hole plot. Shiraj was among the people who was absent from any activities. The Khoodeelaar campaign didn't have any of these people supporting the campaign. Similarly, Shiraj wasn't there in 1992 when I organized a series of events exclusively, world exclusively, and successfully to draw attention to the plight of the people who had been affected by the cyclone that had devastated the southern coastal areas of Bangladesh on the 30th of April 1992. So I organized a series of things, including most extensive series of communications addressing the United Nations organization about the various aspects of the water related disasters that kept hitting Bangladesh, about which I had been aware long before it became Bangladesh, when it was East Pakistan, say in the beginning of the 1960s. So I gave original analysis and recommendations about the feasibility of converting the water and waterborne disasters into positive resource to protect the people in Bangladesh. And the details are there, but I am not going to repeat the details. There too much content. So I have been doing this, not any of these people who have become councillors, etc., or whatever. One of the things that I came across when trying to elicit information about what the Bangladesh government at the time, which was fronted by Khaleda Zia, was doing in the immediate aftermath of the devastating cyclone that had killed hundreds of thousands of people in Bangladesh coastal areas, was to contact the Bangladesh diplomatic missions at the United Nations and also in the Western countries, and especially in Switzerland, in Geneva, where the United Nations disaster activities wing is situated. And the stunning realization on my part was that all these Bangladeshi diplomats, employees of the diplomatic at their diplomatic missions, were not, it would be unfair to the word to call them morons. They had no idea what was happening about these cyclone, etc., and what I was talking about as being the priority that the United Nations should get on with. So here I was, not a government minister, not a diplomat, not anything in terms of the executive positions anywhere. And here I was doing the main thing that these people should have been doing. One of the things that I organized was, of course, the delegation that I took to number 10 Downing Street. Let's check on the year of the cyclone. Have I got the year wrong? 92 or 91? Let's check the year. So I got the year wrong by 1 year. It was not 92, it was the 1991. The cyclone made landfall in southeastern Bangladesh around the time of high tide, which was already 5.5 meters, 18 foot above normal. In addition, the cyclone produced a 6.1 20-foot storm surge that inundated the coastline. The storm also brought winds of around 240, 150 miles per hour. Winds exceeding 220 miles per hour, 135 miles per hour, lashed a populated region of the coast for about 12 hours, as well as 12 offshore islands. An estimated 130,000 people were killed by that cyclone. More than 20,000 people died on Kutubdia, Upazila, an island of offshore Chittagong, where 80 to 90% of homes were destroyed. And all livestock were killed. Some smaller offshore islands lost their entire populations. There were around 25,000 dead in Chittagong, 40,000 dead in Banshkhali. About 13.4 million people are affected. Around 1 million homes were destroyed, leaving 10 million people homeless. The storm surge caused whole villages to be swept away, and the storm caused an estimated $1.5 billion in damage. The high velocity wind and the storm surge devastated the coastline. Although a concrete levee was in place near the mouth of the Kornafuli River in Patenga, it was washed away by the storm surge. A large number of boats and smaller ships ran aground. The Bangladeshi Navy and the Bangladesh Air Force, both of which had bases in Chittagong, were also heavily hit. The Isha Khan Naval Base at Patenga was flooded with heavy damages to the ships. Most of the fighter planes belonging to the Air Force were damaged. The extensive damage caused the price of building materials to greatly increase for an additional 3 to 4 weeks after the storm had dissipated. Mass land erosion resulted in more and more farmers losing their land, and therefore the number of unemployed rose. In several areas, up to 90% of crops had been washed away. The shrimp farm and salt industry were left devastated, etc., etc. So these are the kind of short descriptions of what happened. 138,000 people, I would say it is more than 200,000 people, or even more, must have died. And so I, first of all, wanted to establish at the time the extent of the damage that had been kind of established by the Bangladesh government. But talking to these mental slave morons in the various Western, like the European and United Nations diplomatic missions, proved very frustrating, additionally aggravating frustrating. And yet, the main task mentally, intellectually, morally, ethically, was on me, that I had to do the maximum that I could do to draw the attention and active engagement of the United Nations organization, which to me appeared to be the most relevant international outfit that should be engaged and activated. So I created, that was in May 1991, I created the additional structural kind of project called Bangladesh 2001. Now that was 10 years before 2001, but I called it 2001 for various reasons, including for the topical kind of familiarity because of the name given by one writer to this 2001. Now, when I attempted to explain to the United Nations people the various aspects of Bangladesh environmentally, I didn't have any direct, first-hand knowledge of the areas affected at all. So I could only elaborate based on the humanitarian impact and the future events. And I did my best to get across. So much so that on the 4th of May 1991, I was the main item in the main evening news on the BBC. Main item being the delegation that I took to number 10 Downing Street and handed a letter demanding immediate, substantial help by the UK government to Bangladesh. The UK government was fronted by, of course, John Major. And the result of that delegation and that prominence given by the BBC, that is the highest possible prominence that the BBC could give, resulted in Bangladesh government being given 50 million pounds within days. How do I know? Because I went to the UK Foreign Office, Foreign and Commonwealth Office with another small delegation, and I was told by the official that met me. The official was feeling quite smug against my demands that the UK government hadn't done enough help. He said that we have received, Mr. Haque, grateful letter from the Bangladesh government because of the gratitude they felt with our money, our help to them. And here you are condemning us for not doing enough. And I told this official that I was not representing the Bangladesh regime. I was representing the people affected and the environment and the imperative of saving people and helping them and preventing damage to the environment. Now, I was not a representative from a university campus. I was not a representative of university faculty, nor was I a representative of the government anywhere. So I was doing this and I was getting things done. Why? Because the moral outrage that particular demonstration created, that demonstration meaning the prominent coverage on the BBC, which reached highest number of people, forced the government fronted by John Major to do the right thing, which it did. 50 million pounds in 1991, 2001, 2011, 2021, 32 years ago. 50 million pounds 32 years ago was a significant amount, especially when contrasted with the fact that days earlier, that is, in the immediate aftermath of the 30th April event, the cyclone, the UK government, fronted by John Major, said, just think about this, they had pledged 50,000 pounds. Now, what happened? It became converted into 50 million pounds. Think about the gulf. And that was because of me. And yet, None of the people in Brick Lane, in Tower Hamlets, or anywhere else in the United Kingdom, or anywhere else in the rest of the world, did anything remotely comparable to what I did. So that's the kind of thing that I do. And that is nothing to do with me securing for me a position. What could be more morally satisfying and fulfilling than seeing the result in that way? But this is not seen in that way by the likes of the Bangladeshi organizers of the rally after the murder of Watir Ali and the grievous bodily harm done at that stage to, Watir Ali and the murder of Ismat Ali. They thought that I would get the headline, but they couldn't stop me getting the headline because there is a gulf of 1,000 miles between their perception and their abilities as to what the country needs. I had foreseen the same thing in the late 1960s when I took on Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and presented him with 9 questions. Well, there were about, I don't know how many people there were present at the Institute of Engineers where I did that to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. It could be 1,000 people, it could be 1,500 people. They had been gathered there by the advance party preparing for Bhutto's launch of himself as the savior of the people of East Pakistan as against Sheikh Mujib, the Awami League. They had been primed to become Bhutto's party members. What did I do? I had no invitation and I had no idea what this was about until I began querying by asking Zulfikar Ali Bhutto himself the questions, which he, as can be said now, predictably failed to do. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto failed to answer my question number 1. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto failed to answer my question number 2. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto at the Institute of Engineers in Dhaka in then East Pakistan failed to answer my question number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. At which point, instead of waiting for me to ask him the question number 10, he did an about turn to the right and looked like he was about to burst as he stormed out of the Institute of Engineers. And within very short time after that, he flew out of Dhaka, East Pakistan. His grand plan to defeat Sheikh Mujib's Awami League in tatters. Now, I never supported the Awami League, and I still don't support the Awami League. But what did I give them? I gave them a unique, splendid opportunity to claim that they were the party that rescued the people of East Pakistan and made them Bangladeshis. Think about that. How could anyone in Tower Hamlets even begin to work out that one? And the list of things that I have been having to do for the last 60 years is quite hefty and substantial and unique. In January 1970, which is now 53 years ago, nearly 54 years ago, because this is October, the end of the year 2003. The then Pakistan National Television news in the evening, the equivalent of the BBC News, let's say BBC One News in the evening, news at 10, broadcast a news bulletin leading with me. Again, I wasn't a member of a political party. I still am not a member of a political party in what is now Bangladesh. I never joined one party, and I would not join a single party because the evidence that I see and saw showed that none of these parties were fit for purpose. And here I was leading in the news as the main item of news broadcast by the then Pakistan National Television channel. Main evening news, January 1970, 53 years ago. And the subject was just as the event in my featuring in the main news item, first item in the main news in the BBC on the 4th of May 1991. It was the real issues, the real things that matter, not the superficiality. In 1970, in the January 1970 situation, I had raised a question at a conference being held on a building in the then University of Dhaka. I think the International Students Center. And the participants, the attendees, were vice chancellors, principals of colleges right across from East Pakistan. And the subject was, remember, it was January 1970. And the subject was the discontent in the academic institutions. What the organizers were doing was, of course, at the behest of the then Pakistan government to indirectly use the academic management across the province of East Pakistan to discourage the students and young people from politically supporting any particular line. They didn't name any particular political organization or demand. And they said in a vague way that there was discontent disrupting the academic lives of the people. Now, I arrived there just to observe, just as I had arrived at the Institute of Engineers a few years earlier, to observe what Bhutto would be saying. Out of curiosity, I said, "What on earth are you doing? What is your agenda? What are you doing this for?" And words to that effect. No sooner had I said that than I was invited to join the platform and speak from the main dais, which I did. Think about that. This is beyond any party, political, or other unspecified establishment connection. It was plain and simple, impeccable, fact based, evidential, ethical intervention by me. So, whatever I did say in the few minutes that I spoke, not more than 10 minutes, I don't think I spoke for more than 10 minutes. And it was the main news item in the main news bulletin of the evening of that day, carried by the then Pakistan National Television News. We shall be ending this one at 1 hour 9 minutes, 1 hour maybe 10 minutes. This has been part B of the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast under the banner of the Baby Angel Geronimo editions. We shall be continuing on the other items and update accordingly in due course.